Hi, and welcome to the Virgin River Cafe Rewatch podcast. I'm Tracy.
And I'm Gigi.
Good morning, Gigi. Well, it's morning for us. Who knows what time anybody's listening, but for us, it's a nice summer, hot morning.
It is.
Yeah. So what are you drinking today, Miss Gigi?
Today, because temperature is nice and starting to cool down, I'm having a
Cool
nice
down. It's summer, darling. No, no, no. You can't say it's gonna cool down. You're having a hot coffee. You got to justify that.
I know I'm having a big mug of hot black coffee. I just need coffee.
I
I
hear
don't
you.
want anything in it. I just want a cup of Joe.
Do you have your air
And
conditioner going?
yes, I have
That's
my air
why. There you go. See, as long as you're comfortable, drinking hot coffee is not a problem. Because when it's 90, I don't even know, something degrees outside,
Well,
yeah.
in a lot of parts of the world, in the Caribbean and Europe, people drink hot coffee all the time,
I
even
can't.
when it's hot.
Yeah, it would have to
I know.
be minus something for me to drink. I mean, it's a chore for me to drink hot coffee.
I know.
It's painful. I don't know why. I'm just like freezing cold. I want my iced coffee. I can put on another jacket if I have to. I don't care. Today I'm having a Vietnamese coffee. My husband stopped on his when he went out to lunch yesterday and got me and brought me home a Vietnamese coffee. They never put enough cream in it, so I had to add a little cream, and I usually like a little bit of flavor, so I added a little flavor. So I'm ready to go now. I'll be ready because Vietnamese coffee is quite strong.
It is.
Okay. All right.
Season 1, episode 9. Everyone has a secret.
Yes. Now, this episode, this is another one of my favorites from this season. This one, let's see, the description for this one says Hope urges Jack to read Charmaine's letter. Oh, the letter. Preacher confronts Paige with his new knowledge. Doing that little Google search. And Doc and Mel work together on a pressing case. Wow, it seems like everybody's got something going today.
Oh,
Let's see what's happening in Virgin River. Okay, so as we start out, now remember how we ended the episode uh, 8. It ended with a kiss. So
yes, it
we
did.
don't know what happened after this. She now has a cabin. She now has a place to live. He wants her to feel like she's home. She has some place that she can, feel comfortable. Maybe she'll stay. I don't know. We'll see if this plan that Hope and Jack were hatching comes together. It's the next morning, and it's Jack's bar because isn't that where everyone shows up in the morning? And Mel walks in, and first thing she does is run into Ricky. Now, Ricky, I think, has a little crush on Mel. He couldn't
I
stop
think.
talking about what a hot doctor she was back. I don't think he had a problem helping Jack fix the cabin because it was for Mel. And I think he had a little crush on her. I kind of feel like when she walked into the bar and he saw her, it startled him and he dropped all the silverware. He's just a teenage boy. I mean, what are you going to
Yeah,
do?
well, we all had our first crushes,
Yeah.
so I can't say he doesn't have good taste.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's Mel. Of course, that makes some noise. And what does Jack do? The lingering stairs. See, now something's attached to those stairs. So,
Right? He's looking at her like, oh,
oh
whoa.
my. And then she stands up after helping Ricky and she's looking at him. And oh, so now we're both like, the eyes are darting and the little smiles. And it's like, it's a little uncomfortable. It's a little awkward. It's a little familiar. It's sort of a lot going on just in those looks. And she sits down at the bar and he casually walks up and, can I get you something? A coffee would be great. So he's pouring her coffee. It's very casual. It's like, what do you say? Okay, we were just kissing and now, And so he was like, about last night, because, he wants to talk about it. And she's like, what? Did something happen I should be aware of? Like, because she's so coy. And he's like, oh, you're funny. Now, of course, he can't resist. He's like, I want to take you out to dinner. Now, that kind of sets her back a minute
Yes.
This
because
isn't
she's
just
trying.
kissing, because this might have to go somewhere.
Yeah, and she's still very tentative on how she's approaching any kind of relationship in this
Well,
town.
she
You
loves
know,
her husband, but now she got kind of a crush on this guy, and it's a weird place to be. And he immediately, because it's Jack, he's like, look, just think of it as a meal between friends. He right away dispels anything like it's an automatic date. We're gonna go, it's gonna go somewhere. Like he cut that off right away because he could tell immediately she was uncomfortable. And he even comes back with, we eat together all of the time. Like it's not any different. And she's like, well, the eyebrows, oh, it's kind of different. And he's like, look, no pressure, no expectations, don't even worry about it. And she's like, I don't know if I'm ready. I love what he says. He is so cute.
since you've got 10 hours, and I think you'll be fine.
Like, I not what she meant, but you know what? That's what she needed to hear. She's
Well,
like,
you have to be
stop.
right.
You know?
Well, that's the whole thing, because if you linger too much in your head,
Yes.
you end up doubting yourself. So
Right.
the thing is to just move forward. It's like when
Yes.
you step into a cold swimming pool,
Yeah.
or
Sometimes you
or
just got to
something.
jump.
You just got to jump in with both feet. So that's the whole thing. So he is taking the initiative and
Yes.
making sure he pushes her in, and we'll see if she sinks or she floats.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And once he says that and she's like, "Stop." And then he looks at her with those big
Those
blue
big
eyes and the
blue.
dimples and the smile. It's like, "Okay, I mean, what else are you going to say?" Yes. She's like, "Fine. Okay. Yeah, whatever. Okay." And he's like, "Great." He's like, okay, good. Got it." And then we have to go back to, well, I'm here to get Doc's breakfast. He said, "Oh, I'll let Ricky bring it over." And no, Doc is ordering her around like she's an intern assistant type person.
Well,
And she's
basically,
trying to
he's her.
not.
Well, that's the problem is he thinks she's his catch and go girl.
Yeah.
You know
Yep,
that
a
he's not.
gopher, get the
It's not
coffee, make sure you get my lunch,
right.
push
He's not
papers
seeing the
around.
professional person she is.
He's not
So
valuing her for her ability. Right now it's almost like he's testing her, but he's not even really giving her a true test. And she has to talk to him.
oh yeah,
And Jack's like, just give him some time. And Mel's like, well, there's this trial period. It's 30 days and it's almost up. Okay, so that gives you a bit of a timeline because he was working on the cabin for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. That was the fastest renovation. I mean, I've seen like, while you were out and the thing where people go away for a weekend and they come back and everything
right,
is, it
yeah,
was like that.
yeah. But
How
those people have a crew
I
working.
know. He had
He had
Brady and Ricky. And Brady was very reluctant. He did not look. I only saw him there once. I don't know that he was there because he said, and occasionally Brady. So I think Ricky pretty much lived there for 2 weeks. And then Jack, I don't know how he's running a bar, taking Mel on all of these adventures, getting kidnapped and what have you, and
exactly.
and renovating a bar. Like, does that man sleep? I'm wondering if he sleeps because I'm thinking
It's called the Virgin River Magic.
it really must be because yeah, I don't know.
That's
Oh
the
my.
only thing I want to jack it up to. Virgin River Magic.
Yeah. So Mel has to go talk to Doc. So she grabs his lunch and her coffee and they're like, bye. They're very coy, bye. And they pick you up at 6. And boy, does Ricky's head spin around like, oh,
I know. Here's that.
he's like, nice. So they'll have to chat about that later. Again, when we have our opening shots, the scenery. I'm going to say it every time because I just love it.
It's exquisite.
I know. So we're back to Doc's, and there's a kid, and he came in because he's got poison ivy on his field trip and is given.
He was hiding from his counselors, and he hid in a bush of poison ivy. He got what he deserved. So
Oh, yeah. He was on a field trip from school, and he got himself poison ivy. That's what you get for not being where you're supposed to be.
Exactly.
Hope drops by, and she was like, keys. I need your keys to your truck, and not even a hello. And he was like, good morning to you, sunshine. I don't have time. What's wrong with your car? And apparently, Doc tried to fix her car, And that did not go well. And so she doesn't have a car. So her answer to that is to come get his keys. So he wants to know where she's going. And she's like, it's none of your business. And he says, well, it's my car. It's my business. She tells him he's going to Clear River.
At that point, Doc loses it. He basically says, stay out of
Yeah.
Jack's business.
I know what you're going to do because guess who works in Clear River?
Yeah.
Charmaine with her in her beauty shop.
He can't let sleeping dogs lie.
Well, she said, you know, Jack's family, he's been that way ever since he moved here, and I'm not going to watch him get hurt. So if there's something I can do, I'm going to do it. And
But
Doc
as
is
I
like,
said before,
stay out of it. Like, what are you
exactly.
doing?
She sees Jack as her child. And
Well,
she can't help herself to some degree. She sees him like an adopted son, basically. Let's
yeah.
put it that way.
And she feels like she needs to intervene. And Doc is worried that if she gets involved, that she is going to mess things up with her and Jack, that he's going to get mad or resentful or something. And she just needs to stay out of it. And he doesn't want to be any part of it. I've warned you. I've told you. He doesn't want to give up the keys. She's like, fine. I will just sit here and I will wait till you give up the keys. And
he tries to get her out of the office by saying, those magazines have germs and all that sort of stuff. And she's like, I'm not afraid of germs.
I'm not afraid of germs. Yeah.
And then she decides, well,
Mel walks in with Doc's breakfast, and then she stands up. She's like, oh, well, since I'm here, I'll just tidy up your office. That's all he needed to hear.
Yep, he scared the man half to death with saying that.
And then he's like, fine. He throws her the keys, and off she goes. And he's like, that woman is tenacious with a capital T. That's what Mel says. And he's like, oh, that's a nice way to put it. And he's like, I'm not being nice. Like, he's already irritated, and it's probably not even 8 o'clock in the morning.
So she gives him his coffee, his breakfast, and now she wants to talk to him about what is her role in this office.
Yes. And her future. Let's talk about my future.
Exactly. And he's like, well, let's not forget about the coffee. And she's trying to tell him that that's not her job. And he's like, it's not the end of the world. And it's like, hey, bozo, my job is not to bring you coffee.
Right. She's like, I need to believe that what I'm doing here matters, that you want me here. He's kind of looking at her, well, coffee is important. And she's like, yeah, but I'm not your assistant. And he's very much like chauvinistic about this. And then granted, he's an older gentleman, very old school.
That doesn't excuse him for being an assistant.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Very true. Very true. I mean, it's not like she's uneducated or she's there as a helper. She's a nurse. She has a job. She knows what she's doing.
And she's been doing this for a while. It's not like this is like her first case, first place she's working.
Right.
He knows that she's qualified. He's just being an idiot because he is not willing to give up control, which is what
any control. That's
about.
what it's all about.
It's
exactly.
It's all about control.
Absolutely.
So and because he doesn't want to give up control, he feels it's his job to make her life as uncomfortable as possible because he's still hoping that she will say, I'm done.
Right
here.
Right. Exactly. And in order for her to feel like she belongs there, he has to give up a little bit of something. She just wants to feel, she's like, I respect you. I would like a little respect also if we're going to continue to work together because I mean, she can't continue like this. She just, she said her piece and I guess she's going to leave him to think about it, which he does. He's going to ponder on that one. So now we're back at the bar in the kitchen and Preacher is, he's not real happy.
And Jack's like, he's working on the grill and at the rate he's going at, Jack is afraid that he's going to take off all the seasoning off the grill at the rate he's going. So
yeah.
Jack's just like, okay, talk to me. And he says, it's Paige. And Jack's like, is she okay? And he said, yeah, but she's
lying.
She's lying to me. And he says, what are you talking about? And he explains about the ID.
That he found in the car.
And and he thinks that Paige is not her real name, but Michelle Logan. And Jack saying people change their name for lots of reasons. Doesn't necessarily mean that she's a liar.
Right, right.
So, and he says, I know you like her. And he's got this awkward grin when he says that.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well,
You got to just talk to her. Just ask her
right.
about it, and and he's like, "Well, what if she doesn't want to say anything?" He's like, "You're not going to know until you ask. So sometimes you just got to ask a question. Maybe you get an answer, maybe you don't." So then it's the
Yeah.
front of the place, and Jack asks Ricky to help him set the tables and whatever. Of course, where's Brady? Brady's late again because Brady's off doing whatever Brady wants to go. And he was like, "Hey, listen, I need somebody to close tonight. That's why I need Brady." And he was like, "Well, where are you going?" Out. And he goes, "With Mel." And he's like, "Maybe." And he goes, "Like a date?" He's all curious. He goes, "No, well," and then he's like, "Wait, I thought she was married." Because, Ricky, Jack has
Yeah.
basically raised Ricky for several years since he
Yes.
moved with his grandmother. And so he kind of looks up at him as like a father. And so these morals that he instills in him, he was like, but wait a second. I thought she was married. It's like, well, she was, but now she's not because Jack wouldn't date a married woman. Then it's, well, where are you going to take her?
And he's like, there's a place in Eureka it's Arthur's, it's really romantic. And
Ricky's like,
and
oh, I know the
like
place.
that.
And
And then
Jack's like,
in the back of my mind, I'm going, how does he know this place? But then again, I have to remember. You remember, Eureka is the biggest town. I mean,
yeah,
besides Clare River,
yeah,
um,
Eureka. Yeah.
Eureka is the bigger town than even Clare River. You know about fancy restaurants, which I don't understand why this kid who doesn't have a pot to
He
piss in.
he
Um,
googled it because he wanted to take someone to a fancy restaurant, and he found the place. That's why he knows about it, because he says, because Jack's like, wait a second, how do you know about this place? And he goes, oh, I googled it. And he goes, why would you do that? Exactly your question, my question. Why would this senior in high school be googling fancy restaurants? And he's like, Emily is why I googled it. And he's like, oh, and he's like, yeah, I sit behind her in biology and I like her and I think she's amazing. And so he thought maybe if he took her to this place.
what happened to the good old days when somebody, as a teenager, took you to Dairy Queens or
No,
McDonald's?
no. Okay, okay. Standards are so much higher now. Like first date, you got to go like all out. I mean, you've seen like promposals and all this kind of craziness. Yeah, there no nothing is ever done. Nobody just brings you a flower. Nobody writes you a note. Yeah, we're done with that. Those were days gone by.
I am way too old, man.
Yeah, I know.
God.
I know.
Anyway,
It's sad. So Jack's like, "Oh, okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about girls." And he's like, "So, what's your move? What's your move? What are you going to do?" Ricky, he's so cute. He's like, "Dude, I don't have any moves." Like, and he's like, "Well, just ask her out." And he's like, "You got a 50-50 shot." I mean, think of it this way. What chance did he think out of all the men who live in Virgin River, and there's a lot of hot men in Virgin River, okay? I'm just going to say that. And there's not a lot of women who are around Jack's age for him to date. You
that
can
is so
probably
true.
count on one hand how many women are eligible. And for
Mm-hmm.
him, it's kind of like, okay, I see this woman who just walks in the bar. Of course, he swoops right in. Ricky, you need to go get some glasses. Remember that, and just go do something else. So he, zeroes in on her right away. Like he says, you have a 50-50 shot of her saying yes.
It's
So
true.
why not? And just like he says, you have 50-50 chance of saying yes. Ricky reminds him, yeah, that's the same chance that she'll say no. But if you don't try, then what's going to happen? You have to, he's be an optimist. She's way out of his league. The last guy she dated was like, I don't know, captain of the football team or something. And it's like, do you know, Jack? Look at me. I'm not the captain of anything. So he reminds him that he's a smart kid, he's kind, he's respectful, and that any girl would be happy and lucky to be dating him, and that he should, have confidence. Jack has confidence in him, so I think he probably will rethink that.
Yeah.
He'll rethink asking her out because maybe he thought he wasn't worthy, but after Jack's little pep talk, he may change his mind and and ask her out.
He may get some pep in his step, as
Yeah,
they
why
say.
not? I mean, he's a nice kid. Like he said, any girl would be lucky to go out with him.
Anyhow, we go back. We now are in Clear River, and
Mm-hmm.
we see Charmaine, and she's finishing up with a client, and who should chop in but our nosy neighborhood person,
Yes.
Hope.
And Hope,
And
she's like, "What are you doing here? I came to see you." And she goes, "Oh, are you finally ready to get rid of the gray? And I'm gonna like, well, warm up your hair, fix your hair." And she's like, "No, no, we need to talk seriously." She pulls the letter out of her jacket and hands it to Charmaine, and Charmaine's like, I don't understand. Did Jack give this back to you? What's going on?" She's like, "Well, then why do you have? You need to talk to Jack about what's in that letter in person." Charmaine is mortified. I think is a good way to say it.
of course she is, because she didn't expect Hope to open up the box and get the letter. That's the
Well,
whole thing.
she's like, "It was sealed." She's like, "Well, or no," she said it wasn't sealed. And she's like, "Yeah, but it was in a box with a lid
With the lid.
and addressed to Jack. Like it had nothing to do with you." She goes, "Well, let's not bicker about whose fault it is. The point is you really need to talk to him." She's like, "No, that's why I wrote the letter."
And she says, you have to do this. And she says, no, I'm moving on.
She
It,
didn't want a big
com-
dramatic
yeah,
conversation. She didn't want to have to face him, basically. She's basically taking the easy way out by writing a letter because talking to him would have been too hard.
and she says, are you trying to hurt him? And she says, because, if you care about him, what you're saying in this letter affects him too.
Yeah.
And she's trying to give Charmaine's trying to give her back the letter so that she can put it back in the box.
Yes. And make sure that Jack gets it.
And she's like, no, it's been a long time,
She should have left him a long time ago, but she didn't.
Yeah.
And now this is where we're at. And could she just please take the letter and just make sure Jack gets it? And she's like, "Look, just have to do what I have to do. And I feel like this is the best decision for me." And of course, Hope doesn't agree with her. She's like,
Nope.
And then Charmaine's like, "Well, it's a good thing it's not your decision." So unfortunately, or I should say reluctantly, Hope takes the letter and heads back.
Yeah.
So we're back at the clinic, and we've got a family that walks in. They have a daughter. She's about 12, and she is not looking good at all.
None of them are looking good, to be
No,
honest.
the daughter looks the worst.
Yeah.
And they're explaining that she has asthma. They tried her inhaler. It's something's not right. She's not feeling well, and so they take her into the exam room. Doc and mom take the daughter into the exam room, and Mel starts talking to the dad, and he's like, "I've got a headache and I'm a logger, so I'm okay, I think." And so she wants to check him out since Doc's got the daughter, and his whole concern is for his daughter. But Doc's got the daughter, the mom's there, and so Mel's like, "Well, while we have a minute, let me just check you out too." So she's doing all the vitals, the checking his
Blood
heart,
pressure, the
blood
heart
pressure, and
thing.
his oxygen levels and everything. So Doc starts doing the same thing with the daughter, just checking to see how she's doing, listening to her lungs, all of that stuff. And something is definitely not right. I mean, she looks sickly.
Yeah. She definitely doesn't look like a child who's just suffering from just breathing.
Or just a cold or something.
Right.
So Doc says that he'd be right back, and he goes in the other room and he's going to consult with Mel because he has his suspicions. She now has sort of evaluated the father who joins his family. And Doc's like, "Okay, it's not asthma. She doesn't have it." And they're going back and forth. Could it be an allergic reaction? They have the oxygen's not right. The oxygen is supposed to be like 95 or above, and hers is like 80. And the wife doesn't look good either. It's like something's going on with all of this. The little girl's nauseous and sweaty, and so now they're like, "Okay, we think it's maybe some kind of poisoning," but they don't have the ability to deal with that. So all they can do is head it off and then get them somewhere like to a bigger hospital. So when they feel that it's poisoning. So they have charcoal, they have you drink charcoal, and then they give her an IV
I,
because for fluids.
mhm.
And the idea is just to kind of give her what she needs for now so that they can safely get her to Clear River, wherever the hospital is. And then they start asking questions like, how have you been feeling? And, now the mom said, oh, I'm not really feeling great either. And so it's like a whole family thing. Something, everybody's got a headache. Everybody's nauseous. They thought it was a stomach flu because those are the same, very similar symptoms.
Right.
And
So,
Doc's like, you know what? I feel like you guys have been exposed to something. So then now we got to narrow it down. Have you tried anything new food? Have you tried any new food? Are you shopping anywhere different? In the meantime, he's having Annabelle drink the charcoal. They put an IV in. They're like, okay, what about the, chemicals around the house or cleaning products or gardening things? It's like, no. Everything's locked up. Everything is good. And they're just trying to like go through the normal everyday things that it could be. And they
yeah,
evaluate, okay, we got to get her to the hospital, but because of where they live, it's like an hour or two away.
if they call
They
an
Yeah,
ambulance.
if they call an ambulance, it's an hour there and an hour back. It's better if they just go. Now, Annabelle starts throwing up, and Doc's like, you know what? We're going to take your truck. He's going to drive. Mel's going to hold the IV, and we got to go. We just got to go. And they just grab everything, and they pick her up, and they leave. Hopefully, nobody else needs anything because they're gone. They have an emergency.
So now we're back at the bar, and Hope walks into the bar like a house on fire,
Yeah,
and says, "I need to talk to you right now."
yeah.
And he's like, I can't do that right now. Brady's not here. I can't leave everything to Ricky.
And she's like,
And
no,
he
no,
said,
no, I have to talk to you right now. It's very important. And he's
he's
like,
like, no, we have a dinner rush, and I can't leave because I don't have any help. And he's trying to tell her he's got a business to run,
yeah.
and she is trying to tell him, no, we need to talk now.
And he's
Um,
like, but wait a minute, I got something to tell you. And she's like, can you keep it to yourself? And he kind of looks at her like, why am I saying this to Hope? Hope doesn't know how to keep anything to herself. He's like, I can't even believe I just asked. And he's like, look, how about a 24-hour gag order? Because maybe she could keep it to herself. And he's like, oh, I asked Mel out to dinner. And that's the reaction she gives him.
I
He is
know.
not happy with
He's
her.
like,
Like, what? She's like,
he's like,
damn
I'm
it.
so happy with this. And she looks like somebody just spilled hot oil on her. And she is, this can't wait.
Yeah.
And
He's
he's
in the
like,
middle of like the breakfast rush or lunch rush. He doesn't have time for this. He's like, fine, 10 minutes. I'll see you in my office. And he's dealing with customers and whatever. Now we're back to the
yeah.
mad dash to the hospital. And
the little girl's name is Annabelle.
Annabelle.
And she's
Mm-hmm.
starting to have breathing issues. So they put an oxygen mask
Yes.
on her. And
everybody's frantic. I mean, they're just
right, exactly. The parents and Doc is, Doc is trying to think of what's going on. And then he starts to ask about their gardening. And he
Yes.
says, are you hooked up to the town supply for water? And he says, no, he's been saving up for that,
right,
because it's expensive.
Yeah, they have well water, which unfortunately,
Right.
where they live borders the state park. And what is inside the state park? The pot farm. Right? And Mel was there, and she said when she was there, because, she got kidnapped, she spent a little time at the pot farm recently. And she said she saw pesticides. So now they've narrowed it down that it's probably pesticides that have leached into the groundwater, which gets into the groundwater, which goes to the well, which means they've been drinking water that's got pesticides in it.
Yeah, poisoned water.
Mm-hmm.
Just fabulous.
Yeah, I know. Every parent wants to hear that your child has been, all of them actually, the whole family. I mean, they're bathing in it, they're drinking it, they're cooking with it. I mean, that's scary.
Yeah. So
but she's the youngest and the smallest, so it's going to affect her more than anyone else.
So he asked her.
They give her atropine, which is the antidote for at least slowing down the problem. And they get to the hospital, and they're expecting them.
Right.
So
the staff has the beds ready.
They're ready.
Annabelle on the gurney, and Annabelle looks absolutely awful. This poor child.
Yeah.
And her parents, Mel is rattling off all they've
just
done
as
for
if
her
they were the ambulance, and they, you know how like when people the ambulance personnel bring someone into the ER and they give them the rundown. This is what we did on the way. This is what happened. It's like that's what Doc and Mel, they're both talking to the doctors, explaining everything that they did on the way, all the information that they know, so that they can treat them the best possible. And then they inform them that the parents have probably been exposed as well and they need to be treated too. I mean, that's all they can do. They've done the best that they can in this situation, but they hopefully, and they're hoping that they got her there in time.
Yes.
I mean, it's an hour. It's at least an hour drive.
Yeah. And the look on both
the worry,
Mel and his face is like, I hope we got them here in time. But they're relieved, but also anxious at the same time.
Yeah,
because they don't know if they got them there in time. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's now a wait and see sort of situation.
Exactly. They're not going to know until the doctors are able to do an evaluation and narrow down exactly what happened.
So now we're back at Jack's bar. Jack is in his office with Hope.
He's finally made time.
And Hope gives Jack the letter. And he's wondering why she has this letter.
Right. Why do you have it? And why are you giving it to me? And why would Charmaine write me a letter? Like, there's too many questions. And Hope's like, I think she's afraid to talk to you in person because then, she might want you back. And he's like, wait a minute. She's the one that broke up with me. I mean, she knows that, we're not in love. So she's just like, look, you just need to read the letter. And remember, you guys at some point cared about each other. And just remember that when you read the letter.
But at the same time now, who should walk into the office?
Late. Again.
And Brady's like, now I'm gathering from the look on Jack's face between Hope and Brady. He's just like, now
he's done.
He's like aggravated.
Oh,
he's pissed. He just wants to, why am I blessed with these two idiots in my life?
Right. Like, can't life be just a little simpler, please? Oh my goodness. So he's going to deal with Brady in a minute, and he just tells Hope, look, I will read the letter, fine. And then Ricky runs in. He's like, oh, that table of 6, the order's all messed. I mean, there's just too much going on. And so he brings Brady in, and he was like, look, I need you to close tonight. And he's like, well, can't preacher do it? Fine. Because he looks at him like, well, I'm asking you to do something, and you've kind of been screwing around. It's almost like, dude, you kind of owe me, so you really shouldn't say no.
Mm-hmm.
So he apologizes. He's sorry for screwing up. And he warns him again, don't be a problem. So at least he knows that Brady will take over tonight, because if Brady doesn't watch the bar, Jack doesn't get to go on a date. And Jack wants to go on a date. Good thing that Brady will take over. Now, Jack's looking at this letter. Like, it's from Charmaine. I don't even want to deal with her right now. So he just puts it in the drawer and goes back to work. Like, he'll get to it. He doesn't need to deal with it at this moment.
Well, there's so much going on in the restaurant at this point. Between the orders that are mixed up, they have a full house of people.
Yep. And Brady shows up late, and
exactly. And Brady's late. The last thing he needs to do is sit down and read a letter. That requires leisure time.
He doesn't have that. Maybe later.
So then we go back
to the hospital, and basically Mel and Doc are just waiting to hear. They're sticking around because they want to hear how Annabelle and her family are doing. And they talk about how that this groundwater problem, that's dangerous. And Doc's like, I'm going to talk to Calvin. I need to go and face him and understand what is going on over there and let him know that this is a problem. And Mel does not understand why Doc goes over there to help him. And Doc's like, I don't help him. It's not him. I could care less about him. He's a son of a bitch, is what he says. It's the people. Because there's families there. There's men that work there. There's their wives or girlfriends. I mean, there's a ton of people that work there. And Doc is a doctor. And in his mind, those workers deserve some kind of health care because none of them have any. You figure they're working under the books as it is. They're working on an illegal pot farm. The last thing they're thinking about is, oh, do you, Mr. Illegal Pot Farmer, what kind of health plan do you offer? Like, there's no health plan.
I mean, I have to say that one of the things about living here in upper Northern California is that, it's legal here. Mm-hmm. But the thing about it is that before it became, when it was in kind of in between, a lot of people made a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
But, And they still do,
They
because
still
if you
do.
go
Even though
just
it's
going
legal, people still do things illegally.
right, exactly. Because even if you go into one of these places that sell pot, there's some heavy security,
Oh, they have
um,
to.
because it gets pretty dicey. So
Well,
uh,
yeah,
the
for
the
sure.
fact that these people are working there, it's still a situation where if they're not doing it properly, which they're not,
They
there
seem to
can
be
be
doing just fine with the amount of money that they're making. So who knows?
see.
Maybe they're sending it somewhere else, or we don't know the situation there, but they're definitely making a lot of money, or they wouldn't be doing what they're doing.
It's true. Anyway, so we're back at the hospital.
Mm-hmm. And they're discussing just making sure, that Doc wants to make sure that the people get taken care of. And so that's all he ever wanted to do, you know, take care of the people. And so as long as, Calvin can be a jerk, but he's still going to take care of the people. And then he gives Mel a compliment saying that she did a really good job. He was kind of impressed with how she handled the situation with Annabelle, and she
I wonder
appreciates
how
that.
much that cost him to say that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. And then it kind of dawns on him. He's like, that LA hospital really probably hated to lose you. I mean, seriously. And all she says is, I needed a change of scenery, which is so not the story. But that's what she's willing. And he's
That's all
like,
she's
so are you
doing.
gonna stick around? She's like, well, are you asking?
And he's like, well, your trial period, and she's like, no, 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 no. We're done with the trial period. You need to just
Make a
it's a
decision.
right. And he's like, I'm not changing the stationery. And she's like, I don't care if you change the
That's fine.
stationery.
She's like, I can live with that. And they shake on it, which is very cute.
Yeah.
So it looks
So
like Mel has a job and she's sticking around.
thank God.
And then he's like, I need coffee. And she's like, yeah. And shockingly, I mean, the look on her face is like, he stands up and he was like, would you like some? And she's like, I would love a latte, but he just can't let it go. Oh, even your drink is complicated, which is so funny. Now, I have to say, season one, this is season one. You know how much I love coffee. I mean, everything. Coffee,
Yes, I
coffee. My birthstone is a coffee bean. In season one, they make a ton of references to coffee, and
yes.
I thought it would be fun to gather all of those together. So on my Instagram, I made a season one coffee references. So what I did was I went through each episode, and every time they referenced coffee, I put that scene together. I think it was like 3 or 4 minutes long, but it's just cute and you don't really realize it until you sit down and watch them all together. But it's pretty funny that there's probably like 12 or so, maybe more. I didn't even count them, but there's a lot. There's a lot of references to coffee, and I put that together. I thought that was really funny. And then I went ahead and did it for season 2, which is funny. There were less scenes, but they were longer because they lingered and talked about the coffee more. Now that I think about it, I'll have to do season 3, 4, and 5, and then 6 eventually. But it's really fun just to like pick something and then see how that thread fits through the show for the
Well,
season.
you seem to this is your forte.
Yeah.
So you go for it.
I know. I just have fun with the Instagram. I didn't even
I,
know what I was doing back in February, but now I've learned a lot.
I know you have.
It's
And
fun.
and I still don't know what I'm doing on Instagram. So hello.
Well, there's always these Instagram hack number, whatever it is, and they teach you things, and I pay attention and I learn and I try and I have fun, and it's just me being, having fun and being creative.
Well, you
So,
definitely know what you're doing, my friend.
thank you. So
So
we are
anyway,
back at the coffee machine, and Doc is trying to choose some coffee, and off to the side down the hallway, there's a doctor giving a couple some looks like sad, hard, difficult news, and they're crying and they're upset. And Doc has his own, which is rare, his own flashback
it's like they try to make Doc look younger by dyeing his hair and
and
being
softening
more
everything.
right, exactly. And so there's a couple, and they're saying to him, "You promised us everything was going to be okay." and it's not. And Doc has this
He
look
looks
of,
so distraught.
yeah,
Yeah.
he is. And then finally Mel comes, he comes out of it. And because Mel has to say,
She realizes
I,
what time it is and she's like, I'm
yeah,
so sorry. I don't have time for coffee. We really got to get back.
right. And he's sort of place he walks away, and she's like, she's not sure if he heard her,
Yeah.
because he looks down the hall where Doc was looking, and there's the that couple in distress, and she has
Right.
this look of,
Like so
how does
that
this
she knows something that triggered
right,
him because he was deep in thought for a moment. Like he was
right,
spaced for a minute. And so it's like, okay, we're going to have to revisit because she put a pin in that for another
yes,
time. That I don't know, even know if I even remember if that ever comes up again, but it's sort of like, oh, Doc's got his own baggage. Something
well,
clearly has
it
affected
does,
him.
it does come up because it has
Well,
something to
but not
do,
with Mel. I mean, I don't know if
no,
I know he discusses that with Hope at a later
yes,
point, but I don't
right.
know that that conversation ever happens
No,
that I
no, it
remember with
doesn't.
Mel. I don't
So
think so.
far, we have, he and Mel have not brought that
They haven't
topic up.
unpacked that one yet.
No,
So,
they have, they haven't stuck a pin in that one as
yeah,
yet.
we're gonna yeah, if she's like I'm going to stick a pin in that one and we're going to revisit that at some point when it's relevant because with the doc you can't just spring stuff on him. It has to be relevant to the situation or he probably won't even talk about it.
Yeah,
So we're going to move on from that, is probably what she's thinking. Let's just get me back because I have a date.
that's right. She's got a hot date.
So Doc and her drive back, and they're in Jeb's truck because remember, that's how they got there. And they
Right.
pull up in Jeb's truck, and this is really cute. So Doc sees Jack, who's all dressed up, looking mighty dapper. And he
Yes, he is.
waves and he was like, "Oh, you've got company." And she's like, yeah, yeah. He's like, "Don't worry. Unlike Hope, I believe the less I know, the happier I'll be." And she's like, "Okay, thank you." And he's like, "Uh-huh." And and she's like, "See you tomorrow." And he's like, "Uh-huh." You know he wants to know, but he's like, "I'm not touching that with a 10-foot
Yeah,
pole."
no, he's not getting involved with that because it's just not. So Jack says, "What are you doing with Jeb's car?"
Yeah,
You
like
know,
what's going on? And he's like, "Oh, you know what? I got to get ready. I'll tell you because they have like a 1 or 2 hour drive. You know."
yeah.
He's like, "I'll tell you on the way." And it's like, "You got time? It's fine." She goes, "Oh, you look nice." He's like,
Mm,
"Thanks." So they go in and she's getting herself ready. Now this is, oh, I think she says at some point she said to her sister that this is the first time that she's ever been on a date or anything in like 6 years because
right.
you figured she was married, she dated and then was married and then he died. That's a long time to not have been on a date with another man. Like,
Right.
so she gets
Okay.
herself ready. It's almost like looking in the mirror. She's like got to prepare herself, but it's like a little excited, a little
Nervous.
tentative, a little nervous. I'm sure she's very nervous. I mean, it's Jack, but still.
Yeah. And he's outside walking up and down,
Yeah,
pacing.
pacing, pacing like an
Comes out,
expectant father.
exactly. And she comes out of the bathroom, and he is just
He catches
blown
her
away.
eye and he's like, "Oh," stops dead in his tracks and
Yeah.
just kind of stares. And he's like, "Oh, wow."
She's like, okay. And he's like, he says, I thought that, what was it? That
We go to Eureka
Eureka.
because
Yes.
it's out of the way, away from prying
Right.
eyes.
Yes.
And she was like, "Right." And he goes, "No pressure, just dinner, just like I promised. Just dinner. And she's like, "Right, right, okay." Helps her with her jacket, and they're kind of like smiling and coy, and both of them with their dimples and whatever.
Mm,
They're so cute. So they drive. It's 2 hours. She's like, "I can't believe we're only 2 hours away," because it's a completely different. I mean, Northern California, you could be by the coast and it looks like one area. You could go where they are, where like the mountains are. Very, very
yeah.
different. I mean, it reminds me, so it kind of reminds me of Hawaii, where on one part of the island, it's very rocky and full of like old lava, and then other parts it's lush and it's green and it's jungle, and then other parts it's the beach. It's like it's all the same area, but it's so different. Just like this, it's like you have the mountains and the rivers, and then you go 2 hours away, and it's like a boating community. It's a the shore and the wharf, and so it's so different. Now she's only seeing it at night, so I can only imagine what it looks like during the day.
Yeah, Utica is a really nice little town. Um,
Hmm. I've never been
and
there. I drove past it,
yeah,
but I've never been there.
yeah, it's a beautiful little town. And so, but it's it's just it's you can understand why it's a big town or big city
Sure.
compared to the Virgin River, where you have one traffic light and you know
Yeah. One of
one
everything.
of
One of
everything,
everything.
exactly. So that it's that sort of thing. So anyway,
Now this is a little. It's like a wharf with all the boats and everything, and they have this restaurant, this Arthur's, that's right on the water, and this is where he wanted to take her, and it's like, well, wait till you taste the food, and he's trying to impress her, and he's like, oh, they have a Michelin star, and she's like, oh, impressive, and he's, well, that was the plan, because he's trying to. I mean, she's from L.A., so he's
yeah.
he's competing with somebody who lives in a big city, who's probably used to fine dining, and because remember when she walked in the bar, he right away pointed out her designer bag and her manicure and her Cartier
Mhm.
watch. So he knows that
He,
this is
well,
no girl
he
next
knows this,
door.
right? But also the fact that he has four sisters, he
Right.
tells him
Yes.
he's fully aware of all the things that come with
Women
living in the big city,
and women.
and women in general. But okay, so just a side note,
Yeah.
the fact that okay, and I'm being picky here now, just like you were with the stethoscope.
Yeah.
The fact that he has been able to get reservations from Michelin star restaurant in Northern California, which basically takes you 6 months to get
Yeah.
into one,
Yeah.
he's done in a couple of hours.
Yeah.
Okay, boyfriend
Like
is
from the night before. Like he probably woke up and then he said, I'm thinking about this place. That was when
yeah,
Ricky was helping him. So it had been what? He said 10 hours?
probably yes, 10
Yeah.
hours because
Let's
the
just say Jack is lucky and maybe there was a cancellation. Cuz it's
because all I,
true. How would he get that
all,
reservation?
exactly because all that's going through my head is the is a very high class restaurant here called the Laundry Room,
Mhm.
and it takes 6 months to get a reservation there,
Mm,
and it's that sort of thing. But anyway,
that's funny.
pract-
Thank you for that insight. Appreciate that. Because I don't go to restaurants like that, so I wouldn't know. I mean,
anyhow,
I
so
live in the
now we come,
suburbs.
yeah, now we come to this part, and I have to say I'm so disgusted by this scene. I
Oh,
can't even tell you how
I
this
know. Cuz
totally
you've
freaked
worked in
me
you
out.
were a pastry chef. You
And,
worked in
and
kitchens, and so
yeah,
you
and so yes, I used to be a pastry chef, and my thing is seeing somebody doing this. It's one thing if you have a bowl in front of you and you're doing this, but you're doing it from the pot,
Okay,
and
so
I
basically what
uh
happened was because you have to, in case someone's not watching or
yeah.
they're not totally familiar with this, Brady is in the kitchen and he takes a piece of bread and he dips it in the pot, which I think is chili or something, and he eats it. And Preacher walks in and catches him, and
And
he was like, "What,
oh,
dude? Like, really?" And
and
he gets mad at him, and he's had it. I mean, but he already had it with him, but he
exactly.
had it, and he's like, the men's room needs some attending, there's a toilet backed up, and he was like, yeah, that sounds nasty, you better get on that. Brady, just any kind of manual labor or something that he deems below him, beneath
Him,
him,
yes.
he doesn't want to be any a part of. He thinks that he
Right.
should be in charge, large and in charge, but he's so irresponsible, and he's a hothead, and he doesn't work well. He doesn't work well with others. He doesn't play nice.
Mhm.
So why would anybody think that he should be in charge of anything? You have to earn that, He hasn't earned that because he was a screw up. From what Jack said, he was a screw up when he was in
In the
the
middle.
Marines, and he's tried to guide him and help him and you know teach him in a way, give him some values, give him a job, give him some direction, And Brady just keeps throwing it right back in his face. I mean, he's very selfish, and he's just out for money. That's wherever he can make the most money in the easiest way possible. That's kind of Brady's MO right now. That's where he's at the moment. But
Yeah.
Preacher's just not having that, you know? He thinks, Brady thinks Ricky should, clean the toilet because he's a kid. So, I mean, they just argue. They just don't see eye to eye on anything. And he tells Brady, this is what your job is right now. And he says, well, from the second I came in here, you had it out for me. And he tells him it's because of the way you act. If you act like a decent person, you'll get treated better. But he's not interested in cleaning up after people or whatever. He said, it might be enough for you, but it's not enough for me. And then it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Preacher.
And Preacher says, at least I never. Yeah. At least I never killed a man.
I never got a man killed.
Yeah. And that has...
Brady gets his dander up on that one. And he was like, you leave that alone. Now, we find out that whatever happened, Preacher lost 2 ribs and a kidney because of Brady. Because of whatever happened. And Lonergan died because of whatever happened. And Jack just feels responsible. Jack has been carrying this around, this whole time ever since it all happened. And Brady just kind of goes along and does his thing. He doesn't seem to be too bothered by it all. But everyone else is still suffering from whatever happened.
And he's telling him he doesn't care. So that's the problem. And the look on Brady's face, if he could kill him at that present moment, he would.
If looks could kill, Preacher'd be on the ground.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But Preacher's had it with him. He's like, you're done. You're not worth the trouble, and I don't even know why you're here.
Yeah. So Brady walks out of the bar, and now we're down 1 server.
Yeah. Well, he's hardly ever there when he is there, and when he does show up, he's late.
Yes. So now we have Jack and Mel in the restaurant. It looks like a lovely restaurant.
Yes, very nice. They're having some wine and idle conversation. The get to know you date, right? Isn't this the get to know you date?
That's the get to know you date, yes.
So she says that she noticed that he has bedside reading. It's Kierkegaard, which is a philosopher. And he was like, that surprises you? Because she found out that when she asked him, when he mentioned a quote, thought he was maybe an English major, and he was like, no, I went in the military. He never went to college. But he's a smart guy. He just decided to go the military route as opposed to the education route, which is just a different education. You get a whole different education when you go into the military. And he spent 20 years there. So he's a smart guy. He just maybe didn't go to college to get those smarts. And so she's like, oh, no, it didn't surprise me. But, she took some college courses about philosophy. She really liked him. And then they discuss, which is so cute, what they like about him, that he's a rebel philosopher. And that then they start discussing what they thought about this philosopher. And Jack is like, well, it wasn't that he disagreed with what everyone was saying. He thought that they're ridiculous, they're so sure of themselves, and that people try to predict what's going to happen, and it's impossible because you never really account for free will. And she's like, well, he's like, well, not everyone has free will, and right? And she's like, well, and she's like, but what about fate? And he's like, well, isn't fate like a collection of everybody's choices? And she's like, no, I disagree. I disagree with that. And he's like, okay. And then he grabs her hand, which is so cute. We're gonna hold hands on the table. And he's holding her hand and rubbing her hand, and he's like, experiencing this moment that wasn't inevitable. I chose to be here. And she smiles at him, and she's like, okay. And he's like, okay, well, I like it when you put it that way. But she sort of looks at a different perspective, and she's like, I chose to come to Virgin River. And then she grabs his hand because apparently they let
Oh,
go, but now they have to grab hands again.
okay, it's the smoothness of way she
Oh,
did that.
yes. It's not just a
You know,
grabbing of the hand, it's
no,
a
no,
stroking.
there was like a stroke,
Yes.
and she stroked his hand, and she, the thumb to thumb sort of
Yeah.
locking the arms. The hands. I was like, you go with your bad
Yep.
self,
Yep.
girl.
It's like you touch my hand, I'm going to touch your hand. It's all good. So she's like, but she thinks it was fate. And she saw Hope's ad. And then, so she thinks it was both of those things that led her to be in that moment right there with him. And
Yeah.
the looking and the smiling and the dimples. And he's like, but was it fate or was it coincidence that you saw the ad? And she's like, maybe it was serendipity. And he was like, oh, I like that. That's definitely. And he's like, well, whatever it is, whatever brought us here together, he's grateful that they're there. And
I love the smile on her face. Basically, it's so cute in the sense that it's sort of like this is the most we've seen her happy.
She's not been happy at all, almost since the beginning.
Exactly. It's like a continuous, it's like it. I hate to say it. It's like that silly smile you have on your face that you can't get rid of.
Right. Like you smile so much your cheeks hurt.
Exactly. And it's like the first time we see her as being really happy
for like a continuous period of time.
Right. Exactly. And nothing bad's happened. And,
right.
So it's like the day's gotten better as time has gone on. So
right. Like she can sit and enjoy herself, and there's not like a dark cloud hanging over her head at this moment.
She and Doc have come to an agreement and things are good there.
Yeah.
And now
they saved someone that day. They saved the family.
Right.
So she's feeling pretty good. And he's like, I really enjoy talking to you. Mm-hmm. And she said that she really enjoys talking to him too. And as much as he would love to spend the rest of the evening just debating the finer points of free will and fate, now they do a wide shot of the restaurant and everybody's gone. Like every single table is empty. There's not a waitress. There's nobody around. And he's like, I think our waitress might want to go home. And they look over, and all the wait staff is kind of just standing around staring at them like,
you two need to get up and get out.
Are you two done? I mean, why don't you continue this date somewhere else? Because we would like to close up and go home. So she's like, well, we should go for a walk. And he smiles, and they get the check, and they're staring at each other. And, she's definitely with the smiling and the eyeballing him and looking him up and down. Yeah, very nice. Very nice date. Yeah. I think it was a successful first date.
Yes, and it's nice to see Mel smiling instead of being miserable.
Yes, and being sad and crying and worried and conflicted, and the poor girl needed a break. So thank you, Jack, for giving the poor girl a break, because she really needed it. So now we're at Paige's place, and there's a knock at the door, and she's very nervous. She just checked on Christopher, who's asleep. And she hears a knock at the door, and she goes on top of the refrigerator and grabs a gun, makes sure it's loaded, and then she goes to the door, and she's peeking, and she takes a deep breath. She's like, oh, my God. Okay. It's not an ex-murderer. So she puts the gun, and she sort of hides it, holds on to it, hides it behind the door, and it's Preacher. And so she slips it into somewhere and opens the door, and he was like, I'm really sorry that I just really needed to talk to you. Like, okay. He couldn't have waited till the next day.
Well, and that's why she said, can it not wait till the morning?
I mean, he sees her like every day. He's constantly driving out to the truck. She's constantly coming into the bar.
Well, but I think the thing is, because of the kind of conversation he wants to have with her, he doesn't want any interruptions.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Because when he's at the bar, he's constantly, people are ordering food, or he's doing orders, or he's doing inventory or whatever. And when she's at her job, it's the same thing. She's got Christopher with her.
And okay. All right, I'll give you that. It's just like the only time they can have a conversation, which, okay, as a parent, it's true. When the children are asleep and it's late at night is the only free moment you get. It's true. Why do you think I'm a night owl? I'm up at like 2, 3. I was up till I don't even know what time because I was just,
Oh,
I
I
putter. I
know.
have things to do.
I know because when you're Instagramming me at 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
I'm like, what's going on?
Now, to be fair, you're working because that's your
I know,
job.
but
You're overnight
I
being with,
know that. But
taking care of a baby. I have no
you,
excuse.
you have no excuse. So when you answer me on an Instagram,
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is she doing up at this
Yeah.
hour?
I'm puttering. It's my social time to myself. Everyone is asleep. I can process a thought from start to finish without interruption because sometimes you just need that, you know?
I
I've had enough people for the day. My social battery is empty and I need to recharge and refill. So I spend quiet time in my own head and I just,
honey,
it's the way it
I
is.
get it. I get it.
And
But as I
sometimes it's
said,
3 in the morning. But
when I send you a message on Instagram thinking that you're going to see it in the morning,
no,
I'm not
it is in
thinking
the morning. It's 3 in the morning. I can't
that.
help it. I'm a night owl. What are you going to do? Whatever. It is what it is. But that's okay. I get enough sleep. I sleep a few hours here or there. It's fine.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so preacher's talking to Paige and he just really wants to like get this stuff off his chest. He's concerned. She's like, "Look, let's talk tomorrow." He knows he kind of breaks it to her that, "Look, I know that your real name is Michelle. I know you're scared. The things that I read, I know that you would never hurt Christopher." And she's standing there stoic.
I, and
Her,
not only that, she looks like
her
she
eyes
is
are tearing up.
terrified.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is terrified at
She
this
is
point.
terrified because she's like, "Oh
You
my
know,
God, my secret is out." Like she doesn't even know
right,
what to say. But he's like,
right.
"Look, I want to help you. I'm I want to, I care about you." And so she's like, "Look, tomorrow I'll come to the bar and we'll talk about it." And he was like, "Okay." But he was like, it's like he needed to come there to reassure her that
Yeah,
somebody is on her side.
yeah. Because he needs to get this out in the open because he feels like if he doesn't, he's living a lie with her,
Right.
and he needs this to be, he needs at least for her to come clean with him,
Yeah. Oh
So
yeah. And
anyway, so
so here we are back at the date. Now they're
yeah,
taking a walk on the pier,
yes, we
and
are.
Mel is commenting on there's so many boats, and he says, "Oh, you should see it in the summertime. There's just so many different kinds of boats, of fishing boats and charters and day sailors and power boats. I mean, it's very busy. I mean, especially in the summertime because that's like
Yeah.
probably when they do the most business."
Yes, that is true because it's so cool up there. A lot of people come up to that part of the coast
Right.
because it's a lot cooler there than it is, if you say you go down to San Francisco
And
or you go,
it's that part where they are is it really is a boating fishing community. I
yeah,
mean, it's a whole
yeah,
thing. Some people live on their boats and that's what they hear taps and she
yeah,
stops and she's like, "Oh, is that oh yeah, that's taps." Like everybody knows that song.
right.
And he said, "Yeah, there's lots of vets that also, live around here." And he freezes like
Yes,
and his eyes sort of get a little misty and it's
yeah,
like
going
he's
to,
stuck. It's like he went somewhere for a moment and he almost looks sad, It's like you can see his eyebrows furrow a little bit and he's just kind of like stoic, and his eyes are tearing and he's just stands there, for just a moment, sort of lost in some deep painful memory. And she looks at him and it catches her. I mean, she's
yeah,
like, "Hey, are you okay?"
yeah, and he's like, yeah, I'm okay. And but the thing is, she knows that she caught him in that
Oh
moment.
yeah, she caught him for sure, and he knows she knows. So it's like now, how do you? And she's never one to back down about
No,
anything. Like she is a
that's
very like
I have to say that the
love
girl's
that
got some
about her.
serious gumption, man.
Love that about her. She does
You
not
know,
never backs down from anything.
as you know, as we Jews would say, the girl has got some chutzpah. Oh, I've
Yeah, she
got some
does.
chutzpah.
She does.
Mm-mm-mm.
So she says to him, "Jack, if you ever want to talk about it, I'm here." because she's been through a lot, so she understands pain and loss and whatever. And he was like, yeah, and he kind of chuckles, like, oh no, and he's like, thanks. I'm I think I'd rather focus on what's in front of me.
Look at
Okay.
that line, girls.
Yeah. So then he looks at her and he looks at her hand and he reaches down and he grabs her hand and they hold hands. Okay, that's first base. Right? Isn't holding hands first base? I don't know. I forget the bases when you're little. And they just walk together up the pier, holding hands, which I think is very sweet. It's like, I'm here for you, you're here for me. We both have pain, we both have loss, we both have crap in our lives. To know that the other person gets it, that they've been through stuff too, it's comforting in a way. It's like they, without even saying anything, they kind of knew that each other sort of got it a little bit.
Yep.
So now we're at a different bar, and this is one where Jimmy, remember Jimmy from the pot farm? He's the guy that kept ordering around Mel and Jack at the pot farm when they were saving Calvin's leg.
Well, he's the one who basically forced them to
Right. Yeah.
to go to the pot farm because
Yes.
he pulled a gun on them.
That's Jimmy. So Jimmy is at the bar and he sees Brady, who's sitting there having a beer. And he was like, hey, look who it is. It's like, what are you doing on this side of the tracks? And he's like, and who the hell are you? And he goes, oh, I'm your fairy godmother. And he goes, wait a minute, you're Jack's little helper from Virgin River, right? Pulls out a wad of money and tells the waitress to leave the bottle. And he was like, wow, that's a lot of money. And he goes, it's nothing. And they drink a shot together. And he was like, huh, really? Well. And he's kind of looking him up and down. He grabs the bottle and he decides to pour himself and him another drink. And he goes, so what is it that you do? He goes, well, I don't work at a bar. Kind of like putting down what he does. He goes, I hardly work at all. And he was like, uh-huh. And he takes that shot. He's like, hey, if this guy's paying, I'm drinking. So now we're back at Mel's cabin. And they get out of the car and they're kind of like, this is like, okay, the date's coming to an end. We're smiling. We're like, I had a really nice time. Thank you. And he's like, oh, you're welcome. And, she's like, Eureka's beautiful. And he's like, well, there's so many places around here that I'd really love to show you sometime, whenever. And they're standing on the porch and it's kind of like uncomfortable. And she's laughing. And he's like, well, good night.
Yep.
And he's like, good night, Mel.
That's a comfortable moment. And he doesn't know whether to kiss her or not kiss her.
Yeah, he's going to kiss her. So he goes in for the kiss. And it's like, okay, little kiss. Very nice. Very nice. But he puts his hand on her shoulder and she kind of backs up a little bit. And he was like,
Yep.
he's like, are you okay? Because knowing her history, this is probably the first date she's been on in a very long time. And she's very tentative. And she's like, look, I just need to take things slowly. And he's like, Jack, it's okay. It's fine. Now, if you watch, she's thinking and she's looking up at his eyes and down at his lips and up at his eyes and down at his lips and up at his eyes and down at his lips. Yeah, I want to take things slowly. But yeah, she goes back for more because she can't help herself. I'm sorry. It's Jack.
It's too tempting.
I mean, he's standing right there. He's in the mood to be kissing, so why would you not? Now, this kiss, a little bit more.
Oh, this kiss is intense, honey.
Definitely. And I don't know who stops it, but they kind of stop, and he kind of jokes, and he's like, okay, now you're killing me. And she's like, you're going to be just fine. So they're kind of like giggling. It's like awkward teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
And he just is like, I'm going to step back. And he looked a little Matthew McConaughey in that scene right there. He just has a very Matthew McConaughey. And I love him. So they're just kind of, she opens the door and she's standing in the doorway. And it's like, what do you say? Like, she's like, I make great pancakes. And he's like, oh, I bet you do. And they're just chuckling. And she's like, okay. See you in the morning then? And he's like, yeah, sure, sure. Pancakes, great. She's like, okay, good night.
And
Now, I
he's
always,
leaning on that, he's leaning on that pole, like
it's
basically
holding
he's
him up. It's
holding him
holding
up.
him up. It's definitely. Now, okay, what do you think? Do you think the pancake invitation, it's like there's been debate, I guess, call it online debate. Was that
Mhm.
an invitation to come in to have pancakes for breakfast with her? Or was that an invitation to come back the next morning because I can't wait to see you again? It's
I think that's the invitation for the next morning, because I think she's trying to keep it slow, but she doesn't want to push it because she's still tentative about where their relationship's going to go. So
right.
I think
And she's
it's,
still
you know,
tentative
we
about a relationship. I
right.
mean, let's to be
And
fair.
basically right, and she's be saying to him, you know, I want to be with you, but I want to make sure that,
It's
I'm
almost like I want to see you again. I want to see where this is going to go, but I don't really know how to do this. So we're going to just have some pancakes.
right.
It's like what could she think of? What else could she think of?
I don't know.
You
I
know?
think that's a nice invitation. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not spending the night. He's
No.
going to come tomorrow morning,
I
and
mean,
they're
they've
both
had two kisses that we know
right,
of.
right,
And I know
and
there's something that also that's kind of funny. If you and I didn't point this out before, but when she was getting ready for her date,
mm-hmm,
her suitcase was opened up and she was like there was things sort of sprawled everywhere, like kind of like when you get to vacation and you take your toiletry bag out and you put it on the thing and whatever. Because
mm-hmm,
remember, the night before he gave her the cabin.
that's right.
So she's only been in the cabin 24 hours.
That's true.
So it's like she technically didn't even really move in yet. I mean, she somehow or another at some point, probably from the time he gave her the cabin, which probably wasn't that late, went back to the Fitches, got her stuff, brought it back to the cabin, and then had to go to work and then had to save Annabelle and then get ready for her date. So it's like at some point she moved into the cabin in that 24 hours.
Right. Well,
I
I'm
just,
sure, and he made sure, I'm sure, that her refrigerator had food in it and all that sort of
well,
stuff.
I'm sure it was, yeah, it was already stocked for sure.
Yeah. So
Now, and this is what I mean. See, there's her suitcase. So she
yeah,
literally hadn't even moved in yet. She's because there's all of her stuff.
she's opening up her, that's like her makeup case,
Mm-hmm.
and she pulls out
This
from her
little
makeup case
satin bag. She pours out all the wedding rings.
all the rings. Yeah.
Her wedding ring, her engagement ring, and his wedding ring. And then a flashback.
And the doctors are giving her the news about infertility. And it's not good news,
Yeah.
basically.
And that she
He's
says, I'm
basically,
very sorry. And
yeah.
they suggest surrogacy. So my thinking is that this must be after she had the stillborn.
Mm-hmm.
And they're telling her, you're just not going to be able to have kids. Like, we don't know yet. She's had miscarriages and now she's had a stillborn. So the doctor's saying, try surrogacy. And that's, she wants a child. So if that's what the doctor suggests as the next step, then that's something she will absolutely consider. But just the thought that she will not be able to carry her own child is devastating for her. And Mark is
Um,
being very sweet and
and
he's being
supportive.
very supportive and he sits down with her and she's just distraught hearing this news. But she goes right into, well, this is what we can do. This is our option. She's like, okay, well, do you want to look for a surrogate? And he's like, I think we need a break. And she's like, what? And he's like, it's
Yeah.
all we do.
We do is talk about it. This consumes the entire marriage, and they don't have a marriage anymore. And he says the prospect of asking a total stranger to carry their child. And
Yeah.
he's like, wait, it doesn't have to be a stranger. It could be Joey. You can ask Joey. And he says, and he's like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to ask Joey. I don't want to do this. Says, the thing I've noticed is he is in love with his wife.
Right.
He really
It
loves his
sounds like
wife.
he doesn't need children.
Exactly. That's
He's
what I was about to say.
perfectly happy with his wife.
Right. He doesn't care if they have it or not. He wants it because she wants it.
Right.
But if like this situation has come up where the doctors are giving them alternatives, he feels like, the universe has already laid this out for us, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. And Mel is not willing to accept that those results.
Yeah, and
She's
exactly.
anything, and that's what I find very interesting about the relationship between the two of them, because at this point he is so done.
Yeah,
He is so
she says, I thought you wanted to have a family, and he's like, well, I did. I mean, I do, but it's all like you said, the universe is telling them that that's not going to happen, and
and he's
he
more than
seems
happy with
okay
that.
with it.
Yeah, and she is not willing to accept that, and that's where I think that's where their problem in therein lies.
And
And
she's
she's like,
almost begging, like,
yeah,
please,
she's
just
like, please,
please,
honey,
can we
yeah,
try again?
yeah. And
And
he
he's
and he is
done.
like and he is like done. But he hates seeing her so unhappy. That's the thing.
Yeah.
He do anything for Mel, and that's the thing. But if it was left up to him and this situation as it is, he would have let sleeping dogs lie
Oh,
and be
yeah.
fine with just him and Mel.
And that's a
And
really, really tough place to be, to
oh,
like
I
keep trying. Because I did IVF. I did IVF for 5 years. My oldest, who's now 21, was IVF number 9. So
yes,
that's it was
I
it
remember.
was trial and error. And you know what? We were on the same page. We were willing
Yeah.
to try again. That's not everybody is on the same page. It's
Thank you.
definitely
And
helpful if you are.
yeah, because I have one of my best friends. It's the same thing. They went through it, and then finally, she was more than willing to do adoption, and her
Hmm.
husband's like, "No, I don't want that.
Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with that." And
Yeah.
so now they've been married for over 35 years, and they have no children.
Yeah.
But she was willing to go, okay, this is not what he wants. Um, and
And you
she's
either
like, oh,
accept that and move on, or you find somebody
exactly.
else to move on with. I
And
mean,
that's
that's the
yeah,
choice.
and they decided, she accepted it, and they moved on, and their life is happy go lucky. They're just, they're an older couple who have no children.
Yeah. Yeah.
um but
And
that's
not
the
by choice. It's by,
no, it's not by
yeah.
choice. And the thing about it, people need to understand that, it's not always by choice. It's there's so many circumstances in bringing a human being into the world, that for some people it's wham bam, thank you, ma'am,
Yeah, I
there's a
know.
baby.
I've
For
seen
other
people, it's like you
people,
stand next to your husband and you get pregnant and,
and
really?
you and I both know a couple like
I
this.
know a
For
few people like that. It's like,
right,
seriously? I spent
and
5 years at the doctor, and I don't know, thousands of needles. It's like, really? And you're popping another one out. That's great for you. But
exactly.
sucks
So
for me.
it's not as simple as, it's not a black and white situation.
No, no. And it's a very difficult journey. It's a
Oh, it
very
is.
because you notice kids so much more. You notice everything so much more when that's the only thing that you want. And then when you have
Mhm.
like a miscarriage, it's like you had
Um,
it, but now it's gone, because I've had that
um,
too. And
mhm.
it was there, you almost had it. And then part of you is just like, I have to keep trying. Like, if it might work. And that's her whole thing. It could work. I've seen it happen. It could work. And she was willing to try again and try again. But
Yeah,
if you don't have your partner on board with you, that's
yeah.
that's a that's a
Huh.
very difficult thing to have happen in your marriage if you're not on the same page.
And they were not on the same page,
No. No.
because he loves his wife, and there's no getting around that.
Oh no,
He loves,
absolutely 100%.
but
He'd have been happy with
but
her, just her, the rest of her life.
right, but he is not happy about the direction they're going in
Mhm.
with, because, as he says, we talk about this baby and this
Yes.
thing, and it's
It
all that.
consumed the marriage. Yeah.
Right, and that's not what he was. He wasn't prepared for that. That's the
No.
whole thing. he
Well,
wasn't prepared.
you get married and think you're going to have kids, and it doesn't. You don't usually expect that that's how it's going to work out. I mean, no one
Hmm.
expects that. No one walks into a marriage thinking, "Oh yeah, we're just going to spend all these years trying to have kids, and it's not going to be successful." And now what do we do? Because you don't think that that's going to be your life until it's your life. So
Yes. Anyway,
yes,
back to
so
our
she
story.
yes, we digress. So she puts the rings away, and it's in a way kind of like putting away
Hmm.
that relationship. You know, she's in a place now where she sort of is starting to feel like she might be ready to move on. You know, she's in a place where, you know, she doesn't know where this relationship is going to go, but just the fact that she's feeling feelings again is a
Hmm.
positive thing because he knows things about her. They don't know a lot about each other yet. They're still finding out things, but at least it's a possibility. She's finally starting to feel happy. So she gets herself ready for bed. She gets in bed. And instead of laying in bed crying, she's actually laying in bed smiling, which is probably something she hasn't done a lot of since,
Oh,
you know.
I think there's been a lot of going to bed crying.
Oh,
I think
yes. Many, many,
a
many
lot of
nights.
that. Yeah.
So he's
So
back
now,
at the bar
uh-huh.
and he pours himself a drink, which he does often.
Hmm.
And he's staring at his office and he's sort of like, oh, God, that letter is still in the drawer. Crap. Okay, I'm going to have to deal with it. And he goes in and he sets the drink down and he opens the drawer and he sits down and he opens the letter, puts his feet up on the desk, and he's like, what the heck could Charmaine have to say now? Like, God, I thought we were done. Like, I'm trying to move on. I got this nice lady I'm dating. You know, things are going well.
And
And
then
then the
he reads the
world crashes.
and
I'm
then he
pregnant.
say,
Ugh.
and the look on his face is like, oh
Fade to
my.
black. That's all I gotta say. Poor Jack. Fade to black. I mean, ugh.
Uh,
You feel
just when he
so bad for him. It's like, God, can he please just have a
well,
break?
and as you said, this show has a lot of cliffhangers.
Every episode is a
You
cliffhanger. I
know,
don't know how people. Thank God you don't have to wait. I mean, when they drop the season, they drop them all at the same time. So the only
yeah,
one that's the cliffhanger is the very last one, and that's
yeah.
usually a doozy. I
Oh, it
mean,
is. It is. It
every
is.
season the cliffhanger's been like what?
Yeah,
So
has,
yeah,
has definitely.
fortunately this was not the end of the season. There's
Yeah,
there's one more
one
episode.
left.
Um, so this one was called
This one was called
Everybody Has a Secret.
as a secret.
And it's like, okay, so let's see. We've got Jack has a secret that Charmaine is pregnant. That's
Hmm.
tragic. Mel, I
Yeah,
mean, she's got a lot of secrets. She's got a lot of baggage. There's a lot
yeah,
going on with her.
but hers aren't detrimental. Then
No.
we have Paige. Then we have Paige with her
Oh,
secret.
Paige, yes, with what's going on with this situation and her changing her name and running and
Well,
we
not
don't
only
know.
that, the girl has a handgun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, why does she feel the need for protection and why is she changing her name and hiding and all of
And
that?
got to dye his hair and all
Yep.
this sort of stuff.
Yep. And
So,
and Preacher is keeping I mean he told Jack but keeping Paige's situation that he suspects between him and Jack and Paige. I mean Paige doesn't know, Jack
hmm.
knows, but and then Hope had to keep the secret at least between her and Doc, you know, about the baby. And she went and confronted Charmaine, who was keeping a secret that she was pregnant. It's like, okay, people. So
Now, our secret,
everybody's been carrying around little secrets, and guess what? It's
and sometimes
all
it's
gonna
not
come
a
out.
secret that belongs to them.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, it's all gonna come out. Oh, tragic.
anyway, so we can't wait for the last
Oh yes, the
episode,
final episode of season 1.
and we shall hopefully we'll have some answers to those
Oh,
questions. Those
some of those questions will definitely be answered. Maybe in not the way we like them, but that we're gonna get some answers. It ain't
oh,
pretty.
yes, it's gonna be a doozy.
Oh,
All right,
yeah.
folks. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for stopping by, and we hope you enjoyed our little chat. Bye bye.